many years we have been studying the reproductive behavior of salmon and grizzly bears in the remote interior regions of Alaska. If you understand the remarkable reproductive biology of the salmon and the grizzly bear, it gives us a better understanding of our own reproduction and our own sexuality. We fly from Anchorage across the bay. We fly by glaciers no more than 100 yards on either side, to the right or left, through tall mountain peaks, over a little valley that will eventually lead us into Lake Clark. We boat over to the origin of the Kijik River, right at the mouth of Lake Clark. We plan to work our way up from the mouth of the river all the way up to Lake Kijik until we finally reach a quiet hole near the fork in the river where we thought grayling might be following the salmon in hot pursuit of salmon eggs. Grayling eventually reached the salmon nesting grounds and tried to sneak in past the protecting buck salmon and grab his future offspring, the eggs, for lunch. But what grayling really can't resist, if we talk to them gently, is the taste of an insect lighting on the surface of the bubbling stream. We continue the fly fishing mantra, repeatedly casting a delicate arch of line behind and then in front, the leader reaching out gracefully beyond the line, and this furball of a fly gently setting down on the stream. Whenever the fly lands like it's supposed to land, we suddenly see this dark form from below rise up and a mouth surface and taste what it thought would be a delicate snack. At that very moment, you feel the instant connection with life in a mad tug of war. As we look at these beautifully colored fish with the regal and huge dorsal fin to get a close look, and we peer into its frightened eyes, we say that we are both beautiful and both part of the same organic struggle. Since we don't at that moment need them for food, we gently take the barbless hook out of their lip and watch them swim out of our caressing hand back to their life's struggle. The eagles and the bears and all the other fish in the rivers and streams and lakes of Alaska are completely dependent upon these salmon returning from the ocean to provide them with food. Oh my God! Wow, what an eagle! Jeez. Oh, is that a majestic bird? Oh, is he grand? Whoa! The same testosterone that spurs the bear to fight and to copulate is the testosterone that also causes the male salmon to swim frantically upstream in this death journey to mate. And once they mate, their bodies decay and they die. When the salmon eggs hatch, the little salmon fry would have nothing to eat, and they would never survive without the organic material of their decayed parents to eat the following year. As soon as the salmon, which were in the ocean for most of their lives, begin to re-enter fresh water and swim up the very exact creek or river from which they were originally spawned, they stop eating. They are driven by their hormones to their final destination, which is the exact same spot from which they were hatched 4 years earlier. Why are fish beautiful? They are beautiful so they can attract each other for mating and find strength in numbers like schools of fish. But interestingly, the males are much more brightly colored than the females, presumably because bright coloration is disadvantageous to the females, as it will attract predators, and advantageous to the male, as it will attract the female. Therefore, in fish with a male gender-determining gene, the genes for gaudy colors are closely nearby to the sex-determining gene. In fish that have a Y chromosome, the genes for this bright coloration are on the Y chromosome, as are a host of other sexually antagonistic male benefit genes. They have now acquired a new benefit. They may attract some predators or fishermen that want them on the wall, but for us, it guaranteed they would be returned safely to the waters. The next day we flew down to Crosswind Lake, as we have done every year, to hike through Katmai Wilderness and to look for bear. This is a hilly, barren tundra swept clean by constant winds blowing from sea to sea on the Alaskan Peninsula from Bristol Bay to the Bering Sea. There is a river system starting from Funnel Creek to Moraine Creek and then into Lake Kukakluk that attracts millions of salmon into a shallow, wide waterway. Many hundreds of big brown bears congregate there every summer, and that's where we're going to explore. This is a spectacular spot here, our secret spot where we can just frolic with the bears. It is actually very hard for bears to catch salmon. It's not so easy as depicted in the popular press. So a broad, very shallow river system, thick with salmon, is a major gathering place in July and August for bears from hundreds of miles around. In July, when the salmon are still full of life and energy, the bears have a very tough time catching them. But by August, they are slowing down, doing their spawning death dance, and are easy for the bears to catch. They wade in the shallow, rocky bottom water and pounce with their giant paw on a fish, put it in their mouth, and carry it to shore to eat. The grizzly bear depend completely on these salmon coming in from the ocean, bringing organic nutrition into what is really an Arctic desert, so that the grizzlies get almost all of their valuable nutrition during 1 month of the year, when the salmon are at their weakest just prior to ovulating, when they've come upstream, have stopped eating, and are undergoing overall body apoptosis and necrosis. What we found when we got a little bit farther up the river, right in front of us, in a deep part of the river, were 2 3-year-old male cubs fighting with each other. It was play, but really rough play. They leaped on their hind feet, pushed the other one over, clawing and biting, each trying to declare dominance. They were so focused on fighting each other, we were able to get up very close. Then we saw the 2 little 1-year-old cubs slowly approaching the fracas, so we moved back to stay out of their way, and sure enough, eventually, Mama came along. Then it became apparent that these 2 big 3-year-olds that were fighting, they almost looked like adults, and the 2 more passive 1-year-olds all belonged to the same sow. Now, it is impossible for a sow to have 4 cubs, let alone 2 1-year-olds and 2 3-year-olds. Yet that appeared to be the case in this very unlikely bear family.
Watching is this big bear. He's a big bear. Here he comes. And he's eating salmon right in front of us. And he isn't afraid of us one bit.
In May, when male bears' testes begin to grow again as they awake from hibernation in response to increasing day length and decreasing output of melatonin from the pineal gland, they can only think of 2 things: fighting and sex. Interestingly, their testosterone is chemically no different from ours, or from the moose, or for that matter, the salmon, or any other living male on the planet. So in May, they go crazy with testosterone poisoning. They tear down trees and try to kill the cubs of sows they want to mount and copulate with. The sow will not go into heat as long as she has cubs. Normally, when the cubs are 3 years old, she begins to kick them out so she can start a new family. But until then, she ferociously protects her young from the marauding male. Sometimes the sow gets killed by the male in the process of protecting her young. When that happens, the male, of course, no longer has any interest in killing the cubs because the only reason he wanted to kill them in the first place was to have sex with Mom. So in the occasional event that the male winds up killing Mom, as this huge bear probably did in the earlier part of the season, Mom, as she protects her cubs, the cubs become fairly helpless orphans. I have heard, but never before seen, that orphan cubs are taken in by a sow that already has cubs of her own. This is clearly what happened with this unlikely bear family of 5. The docile little 1-year-olds were sticking very close to their adoptive mother, and the 3-year-olds were resisting the process of being kicked out. They were fighting each other in preparation for facing the wilderness without the woman's protection. And they were also posturing to the little orphan cubs who had displaced them. And they didn't want to leave. No matter how firm Mama tried to be in kicking them out, She was somewhat softened in her resoluteness because with her new orphan cubs, she was not really interested in being rid of her older cubs in order to find some hot male again anyway. And so this weird bear family of 5 were still sticking it out together. Now, what we're witnessing here at this very, very special place is something that I've never seen photographed or filmed or even described before. What we had observed were orphan cubs adopted by a sow who already had 2 cubs of her own. Once she becomes inseminated in May, the sow does not necessarily become pregnant. That depends on how good the salmon season was for her. If she eats well during the summer and gets well nourished, as we see happening here, only then will she get pregnant. The way it works is that the fertilized eggs, or her embryos, do not implant until 5 months later in October, and then only if she had enough fish to eat in the summer to last her through hibernation. The sows begin to hibernate by late November, and the tiny helpless young are born in hibernation den in January. She remains asleep all the time until she finally wakes up in April, as the increasing length of day causes the melatonin secretion to slow down, so she wakes up. The babies are now full-size first-year cubs. She just has taken a nap and finds out that she is a mother when she wakes up. She then ventures out of the den with her new children, committed to protecting them to the death. The salmon and the grizzly bear are tied together intimately in their reproductive and feeding cycle, and the same exact hormones that spur on us, our testosterone towards male mating and the estrogen towards going into heat, these are the same hormones that control very powerfully the yearly cyclical mating and eating behavior of the salmon and the grizzly bear.